Sin. Genesis 4:7. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at your door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Before Christ, we all, and everyone that lived in that time, belonged to the world. Within these people were a certain section of people chosen by the Lord. The Lord promised them that there would come a new man that would bring about a new kingdom, a man that would take them out of the world, out of its vices, pleasures, sways, and temptations. In that time, these people awaited the fulfillment of this promise. Living in the world and belonging to the prince of the world, the only things prohibiting you from carrying out any desire or pleasurable action that you may conjure up are the limits of being. If you had all the resources and control over the monopoly of violence, you would do as you want to do. You would do what you can do, what your desires and whims will you to do. You would get away with it. There would be no consequences afforded to you, no shame, no punishment, no death, no curse. In that time, a man without a sword, or the resources to hire a sword, could not speak. They had no power or sway, be it in their household or in the larger society. They could not amass political power. They could not rise from their class into a higher class. If you lacked the capacity for violence, you could not act, decide, or defend. You had no speech. You could not advocate or march for any cause. A man was necessary. A man that could fight. A man with a sword. The people at the bottom of the hierarchy were the women and children. A woman without a man was heavily disadvantaged. The orphan and the fatherless were nothing. The only thing that stopped you from evil was the greater evil of another. Social shaming might have worked to discourage people from acts of evil. Ostracizing may have been effective in keeping the peace within a community. These were higher forms of violence. Well, higher than physical violence. But they too could lead to death. But they took more time. They were more forgiving. They weren't guaranteed death. They weren't swift and precise. The Father gave the people the law. Within these laws are human truths that we abide by, that we, as fallen humans, have to follow to interact with each other and be in alignment with the Father above. Romans 7:7-9. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. I had not known lust, except the law had said that thou shalt not covet. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead. For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. Even after this, we broke the laws. There would be times when one would break the law, but would not know that he had broken the law. In this case, the father would accept an atonement for the sin, a sacrifice of whatever animal or baked good as an offering for the sin, a scapegoat that would stand in the place of the sinner so that they may continue living as the sacrifice died. Leviticus 4:22-23. When a ruler hath sinned and done somewhat through ignorance against any of the commandments of the Lord his God, concerning things which should not be done, and is guilty, or if he sin, wherein he hath sinned, come to his knowledge, he shall bring his offering, a kid of the goats, a male, without blemish. The only thing the father could do when we disappointed him was to punish, accept an atonement, or to forgive and forget whatever action that had transgressed against his commandments. Death was an option. You could be cursed or lose favor. Life would not bode well for you. There would be times where one would break the law knowingly, where one would break the law in defiance or in the spirit of malevolence. This the Lord did not take kindly and punish harshly and swiftly. Exodus 22:24. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If you were a man and you found out that a past action of yours was a sin that you had committed in ignorance, then at that point of the lesson, you would have to make an atonement for that sin. Leviticus 4:13-14. And if the whole congregation of Israel sin through ignorance, and the thing be hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done somewhat against the commandments of the Lord concerning things that should not be done, and are guilty, when the sin which they have sinned against it is known, then the congregation shall offer a young bullock for the sin, and bring him before the tabernacle of the congregation. As we have learnt from the verses, that sin has a very close relationship with lessons and knowledge. If you had learnt all and were all knowing, then there wouldn't be any forgiveness for you, for only ignorance is forgivable. So you are afforded a period of grace for as long as you are ignorant of the law. You couldn't be punished for doing something you did not know was wrong. Proverbs 23:17. Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all the day long. Jeremiah 31:34. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sins no more. In the world of the devil, he wages war on women and children. They are at the bottom of the violence hierarchy. The devil takes the hindmost, and the people at the back are the fatherless and the widows. You must understand that the devil is a living, breathing entity, one that hears and walks, answers requests, sways, and deceives. He was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. You know the law, and yet you still sin. But you lack malevolence. The devil has his temptations and his seductions. You may give in to your lesser impulses and hearken to the voice of a harlot. They are survival instincts that may make you act without thought, where you act hastily, committing a sin that you know is against the law in order to save your own life. They are uncontrollable impulses where you may involuntarily utter a curse, where you may involuntarily commit an act that is sinful. What then? They are those actions that we take when we are under the influence of toxins, toxins that make us lose our own consciousness. Are we responsible for those actions, even though we were not conscious, even though we did not decide or choose? All of these would be punished just the same, even though we had no control on our part. There was hope after the promise was fulfilled, after Christ. Belonging to the world after Christ means that sin can no longer be negotiated for. It can no longer be forgiven and forgotten. Now you have a choice to continue in sin and belong to the world, or to choose Christ and abide in his kingdom. This is a choice for every man, a choice that you will be judged for, whether you know it or not. In the world after Christ, ignorance holds no weight. There is no forgiveness by means of forgetting. It doesn't make sense. It is not a feasible action. It is not a feasible solution to sin. No blood sacrifice or any works make any difference for the sins committed. Nothing can atone for what you have done. There are no exchanges. A single exchange was made when Christ was crucified on the cross. At that time and place is to be taken from the world into the kingdom of Christ. It is a timeless event, one that occurs for all, everywhere, in all of time. Once you have gone through Christ, you can go to the Father and belong to his kingdom. There is shelter for those without a sword, for the sharpest sword is the tongue. There is protection for those that were at the bottom of the hierarchy before, the fatherless and the widows. Psalms 68:5. A father of the fatherless and a judge of the widows is God in his holy habitation. The sheep are asked to care for them, to give them food and refuge, to judge the fatherless and feed the widow. The law has been written on the heart of man and has been satisfied by the sacrifice of the Lamb. So with the writing of the law on the heart, let the fruits of the Spirit manifest from man, for the Holy Spirit abides in man. There are no more works. By the work of the Spirit within the man naturally follows and yearns to abide in the way of the Lord. James 1:27. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. There is no life in sin. Regardless of the immediate benefits and future prospects that the sin may promise, it only leads to death and condemnation. It singes the soul as the flesh is glorified. It calls unto death as the pride of life grows within. No sin goes unpunished, no lie uttered unaccounted for. These acts and words corrupt not only your soul, but your perception of the world. You lose the ability to differentiate truth and reality. The truth moves away from you as your reality becomes a lie. You become divorced from what is. You lose the knowledge of I am. Proverbs 8:36. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. Nothing you do or have done can ever take away your salvation. You belong to the kingdom, and that is that you abide in an everlasting love and grace.